Greetings, Exiles. The new Ascendancy looks really interesting and powerful, and I knew right away that this would be my league starter. But I didn't want to play support because, frankly, after several years of playing support in League of Legends, I ended up with post-traumatic stress disorder. So never again. I'll be the carry, and my mercenary will be my personal support. Let's see how this turns out. Now I need a mercenary, and this is the first zone where I can find one. I restarted this run several times to find a good support and finally found him. Grace and haste, plus some utility stuff like maim on hit. Not bad for a start. I also gave him some items I'd found earlier because I was hoping he'd deal some damage. But I was wrong, it was just ZDPS. On the other hand, he's a support, and his job isn't to deal damage. Besides, I have a good build with Sunder, so I don't have any damage issues. Wow! Divine Orb. So early? That's probably a good sign. Maybe the devs are secretly buffing the loot. Surely. Second lab. And more defense. In Act 8, there's a secret area where you can find another mercenary, and I thought this was a good opportunity. Actually, I was completely happy with my current mercenary, but the problem was that he was very low level, and I couldn't equip him with new items to give him more HP, so that node didn't work out. That's why I restarted the areas again in search of a good mercenary. But after 15 attempts, I realized it was a waste of time. It's easier to finish the campaign and buy a mercenary, so I continued my journey. Third lab increased aura effect and taunt. And a bit more currency. Well, the campaign is over, now it's time to play the real game. But before I headed out onto the maps, I bought a new mercenary. Nice and easy. But first, I need to level up and get some new gear because I prefer not to die trying out a new mercenary. Some of them are really dangerous guys. Well, the time has come. My new mercenary. Now everything's much better. It's time to see what this new mechanic is all about. A valuable find. That was unexpected. And back to the maps. A nice gift from my friends from the Syndicate. I'll also need 5 links. Something like this. To make the start of my journey a bit more comfortable. And my last purchase, another mercenary. Now, let's take a break from progressing through and completing the Atlas and talk about my main build. It'll be Sunder with Facebreaker. And this mercenary is the basis of the entire build and its most important part. Facebreaker is a pretty interesting and cool item, but its main problem is that it's very hard to get added physical damage because we can't use weapons. But that's where a mercenary with Rallying Cry comes to the rescue. I'll just give him a huge axe and get a buff that lets me scale my damage nicely. But it's too early to swap to Facebreaker right now because I need more levels and a few more divine orbs to buy the gear I need. In theory, I could already make the swap, but it would be a pain, so there's no point in rushing. Anyway, here's my starting Atlas. Pretty standard. The only thing I added were new nodes for mercenaries. Maybe I'll find a more suitable mercenary, plus, they sometimes drop valuable loot. The first lesser quest bosses. Last lab. And a fake tank from the Abyss. Thanks. Trading mercenaries on the first day went pretty well. but I decided to head back into the ocean depths one more time to test out the new league's mechanic. I'll say right off the bat that I didn't really like it. Something about it just didn't feel right. But we'll talk about that later. And what's this here? Great message. I like it. And a juicy drop. Cool. Now I have way more currency than I need, and I think I can swap over to my main build, which I'll use to continue this journey. First, let's defeat the mercenary I bought earlier. I also gave him my axe, since I don't need that weapon anymore. Not bad armor. First of all, I was interested in this implicit because the Warcry buff effect is one way to scale my damage. And to get it, you have to spend a lot of currency because Eldritch currency is very expensive on the first day. So it was easier to just buy it. Boots. Again, with an important implicit. Amulet. Not bad for a start. And an anointment. Unique gloves. Their main purpose is to let us use one more anointment. Helmet with nearby enemies take increased damage. And an open prefix for this benchcraft. Rings for the mercenary. And a belt. Well, I'm done shopping for my support, so now I can get something for myself. The main item for the build. I bought the Foulborn version because my initial setup will be a non-crit version, and extra AoE is always useful. You could say the build is ready. An amulet with life, resistance, and accuracy. Now I can adjust my skill tree. Something like this. Precise technique, another damage multiplier that synergizes well with Facebreaker. A shield with life, block, and some resistance. Amethyst rings with life, accuracy, some resistance, and a free prefix. And even though I'm not a big fan of this item and we don't have the crit version, it's still one of the best helmets because it gives a ton of damage. And the final purchase. All the other items are from my starting build. And this is what my mercenary looks like. Not bad for a start, and overall, the swap didn't cost me too much. Now let's see how it turned out. The build feels solid. Sunder is a nice skill with good AoE. But attack speed is something I'll need to work on, it's pretty low right now. Another issue is that my mercenary's buff doesn't have 100% upkeep. I know how to fix this, but I decided to leave everything as is and see how the build performs. Time for the first Voidstone. As expected, with this gear, I had no trouble getting my first Voidstone. Second Voidstone. Easy. Elder. Unfortunately, no good loot. And his buddy, the Shaper. And another Voidstone is mine. And the last one. Cool. I think that after all these battles, my hero deserves a little reward. New body armor with 6 links. Let's start by buying a base piece. Royal plate with a memory strand. Wow, that was quite unexpected. It's already a pretty good start. Let's go to the ship for Allflame crafting. Very good. 2 solid options, physical damage reduction and chaos resistance. I think I'll go with chaos resistance. Let's keep crafting. And another hit. Big life. Just one option, but I got lucky with that one too. High armor roll. This is looking like some solid armor already. Benchcraft. Let's try to upgrade the armor one last time using memory strands. Oh well. It's still a good item. And now for the most interesting part, 6 links. I need more fusings. This time for sure. Nice. Now I can continue completing the atlas. Nice belt. And some tinks. The 5th slot for scarabs. And my new atlas for earning currency. The Syndicate, Mercenaries, Heist Blueprints, and Shrines for speed and quality of life. I think this is a pretty good strategy for Alchemy Orb and Go. It's just what you need to earn a bunch of currency early in the league. Alright, let's head down into the depths of the ocean and talk about the new league in more detail. Monsters don't drop loot, and that's the strangest part, and what I dislike most about this mechanic. I want to kill monsters and have them drop loot, not just ignore them and click on strongboxes to collect scarabs and currency. That's another thing I don't like about the new league. It reminds me of Mirage with its operative strongboxes, rerolls, and scarabs. All of this was already in 3.28, and that's why I'm bored. Although I must note that it's a pretty profitable mechanic, especially given the loot situation that happened in 3.29. But at the same time, I really like the whole pirate theme. And of course, Allflame crafting, which makes it very easy to craft good items. That's why Curse of the Allflame gives me mixed feelings. I can't say it's a bad league, but I also can't say I like it. It has solid mechanics, an interesting setting, and very strong crafting, but there's no loot for monsters and the strongboxes are boring. Maybe I need to give it more time, and maybe there'll be patches that add quality of life improvements and something else interesting, and I'll change my mind. But enough yapping, let's go change my mercenary's gear instead, because I need 100% uptime on my buff to deal high damage. And for that, I need this unique helmet right here. With Hallcrack, my mercenary won't have a cooldown on his Warcry and will use it much more often, which is exactly what I need. However, it does have one major drawback: each Warcry costs a lot of HP, so the mercenary dies very quickly as a result. That's why I tweaked his gear a bit. Now all his items have life regeneration and an increased life recovery rate. And that solves the problem. I also bought him a new axe, because the more damage his weapon deals, the stronger the buff will be, and the more damage I'll deal. A free suffix so I can use the Warlord's Exalted Orb, since there's a chance to gain additional physical damage. As always, we head to the ship for Allflame crafting to slightly increase our chances. This is the stat I need, but unfortunately, it's a low tier. Oh well, it's better than nothing. And back to the maps. Perfect. With this gear, the buff uptime is 100%. But there are two nuances. The first is that Howlcrack ignores the cooldown for war cries, and because of this, our mercenary's AI sometimes glitches. He goes berserk and constantly uses war cry. But that's not a bad thing, because that's exactly what we need from him. Besides, after 5-10 seconds, he comes to his senses and everything goes back to normal. The second issue is the Acceleration Shrine and Echoing Shrine. If our mercenary goes crazy and is under the effect of these shrines, he can die very quickly, so be careful with these shrines. Otherwise, there are no problems at all. And some upgrades for my main character. Let's try to upgrade my shield. To do that, I'll need an Orb of Annulment and a Shaper's Exalted Orb. And of course, I'll be using Allflame crafting because it's broken. First, I need to get rid of one suffix. Nice. Now I need to get life on block. Cool. A very good shield. With life on block, our survivability increases significantly. New belt. I need this base and some essences. That was quick. Good for me. Benchcraft. And Exalted Orb Slam. Abyss Jewel with phasing, life, and damage. New ring with life, accuracy, lightning resistance, physical damage, and an open prefix. Steel ring with accuracy, resistance, life, and an open prefix. I also found an Abyssus with movement speed for just 50 Chaos Orbs. Insta-buy for me. And back to the maps to see how I'm doing and to hunt for some juicy tinks. And who do we have here? Looks like this is my new best friend. I usually go into detail about my Atlas and farming strategy, but as you all know, there are some minor loot issues in this league. Although I don't think there's less loot in the game now, because you can still earn a good amount of currency. It's just that there's nothing new besides the league mechanics, and I'd like to see something fresh for a change. Many of us had high hopes for the new Abyss. We thought it would be a juicy new strategy. But unfortunately, it turned out to be a total disappointment. That's why I've been experimenting a lot and frequently changing my Atlas and Scarabs, so please forgive me, I can't offer any specific advice. Well, except maybe, just be lucky. Now I need a cluster because there aren't any good nodes left for me on the skill tree. I'll also need 2 of these unique jewels. It's a pretty expensive purchase, but it's worth it. So much value. Practically perfect Facebreakers. Back to the grind. This is a T0 unique item, admittedly pretty useless. But it's still nice to have. And this is a really big find. I'll definitely use this shield, so I'll just keep it in my stash for now. Cool, I won. Again, I also decided to try my luck at boss killing to see if I can earn some currency and how profitable it is. My regular viewers know this is very rare content for me, but desperate times call for desperate measures. For more DPS against bosses, I swapped Sunder for Earthshatter. At this point, many of my viewers might be wondering, if Earthshatter has higher DPS, why don't we use it all the time? Let's take a look at these two skills. Sunder has a higher effectiveness of added damage, which gives us more damage, but Earthshatter creates spikes that then explode, and their damage can overlap. This is very effective in boss fights, specifically against large targets that don't move very quickly. On maps, however, you won't be able to take advantage of this. Besides, if you want to use Earthshatter, you'll need at least one Warcry, which you'll have to use manually to detonate the spikes. We do have auto-exertion, of course, but that's not enough. That's why Sunder is a much more comfortable skill for mapping, and compared to it, Earthshatter feels worse and a bit clunky. Well then, let's see what the currency situation looks like after killing bosses. Overall, it's not bad. Good earnings. However, this content is pretty boring for me, so I went back to the maps. Especially since I managed to find the perfect strategy for myself, one that I really like. Here's my atlas, and I've named it Just Be Lucky. You'll also need scarabs like these and 8 mods maps. Now let's talk in more detail about this strategy and where our main income comes from. First of all, we'll be running the cage map. Sometimes the boss will drop a scrying orb, which is quite expensive. Second, there are mercenaries. They sometimes drop valuable loot that you can profit from. Also, if you're lucky, you might find a powerful mercenary that you can sell for dozens of divine orbs. Lost shipments are also a good source of dopamine. And if you're a lucky player, you might find Svalin. I don't need a second one, but it's easy money for me. Blueprints with special enchantments are expensive, so I've added them to the Atlas skill tree. And the last point is the Syndicate. It's a good source of lucky drops. As I said earlier, this isn't a very stable strategy because the main idea is based on lucky drops. But there are plenty of sources for tinks here, so the chance that you'll find something valuable is pretty high. If you buy a lot of lottery tickets, you're definitely going to win, right? Finally, the long-awaited patch with Abyss buffs. Hold on a sec. I don't see any significant changes to the loot here. Oh well, my English isn't very good, so I probably just didn't get it. After all, the developers promised it, so I'm expecting lots of tinks from the Abyss. Let's go! A massive loot explosion is coming. A rain of divine orbs will start any minute now. Any second now. Well, what can I say? GGG, I'm disappointed. Maybe I was being a little dramatic here, and in reality, after the patch, Abyss chests started dropping more loot, and you'll find divine orbs from time to time. But to be honest, I was expecting something a bit different, because this is yet another piece of content where loot drops from chests rather than from monsters. Maybe GGG wants to add realism to the game. I mean, I get that monsters don't have pockets and have nowhere to store currency, so they just stash everything in chests. And now it all looks logical and realistic. Or maybe there's some other reason, but frankly, I've stopped understanding the developers. Anyway, I still managed to earn a bunch of currency, and now comes the most interesting part, the endgame version of the build. First and foremost, it'll be a crit build, because that's the best way to scale damage in the late game. Usually, builds like this use these items, but I don't like them. Even though they provide a ton of damage and insane numbers, the character is very squishy with them, and all your hope goes to CheeFLame. But even with CheeFLame, you need other layers of defense, because playing a late game build where your max physical hit is 6000 HP isn't much fun. So I'm going to take a slightly different approach. First of all, I'll use a helmet with this modifier. Since we're not using a weapon, our base crit is 0, but thanks to this helmet, we get a lot of base crit chance, which is exactly what we need. And we don't have to use bad unique items. Initially, I planned to use Allflame benchcraft, but I think it's not cost effective and too expensive. So, YOLO slam. And once again. Unlucky. Now, let's add a bit of magic. I need a helmet level 85 and these essences. Now we need to make sure there's only one suffix here. Good. And it's time for the recombinators. We got rid of the useless fractured modifier and can use this base again. But first, we need to do this and get another prefix. And another fracturing orb. Nice. I'm sure many viewers don't understand what's going on here or what this witchcraft with recombinators is all about. Actually, I don't understand everything either. If you want to learn more about this crafting method, there will be a link in the description of this video to a guide where everything is explained in detail. So be sure to check it out. Now I need to finish the helmet. Essences. Not bad. This might turn out to be something good. Cool helmet. I'll also need Sublime Vision. In most cases, this isn't the best jewel because it disables all other auras. But my build doesn't have any other auras, so for us, this is a free critical strike chance. And 25% more critical strike chance is really strong. I'll also need a second large cluster. And new boots. As always, I'll start by buying a fractured base. Our favorite essences. Something like this. And one of the main features of any endgame build, Mage Blood. I also bought this amulet. It's pretty simple, but it has everything I need: life, critical multiplier, and physical damage. New jewels with life, a chance to block spell damage, and critical multiplier. New vestigial Facebreaker. There are actually a lot of good options here, and it all depends on your preferences and budget. For example, I bought the one with Rampage because it provides extra damage and movement speed while mapping. And since that's my main content, it's a good choice for me. Also, I was able to get them very cheaply and with nearly perfect damage stats. As an alternative, you might want to consider critical strike chance if you're lacking it. The Abyss socket isn't bad either, because we can add phasing on kill, which is something this build sometimes lacks. Plus, with Abyss jewels, you can get additional damage. There are other options, but they're quite rare and hard to find, plus they're very expensive. And finally, one last purchase, just to be on the safe side. And let's not forget about our Mercenary, because it's a crucial part of this build. First of all, I bought a nearly perfect Mercenary, with Pride, greater area of effect, and greater duration. The only thing that worried me when I bought him was his travel skills, especially Flicker Strike. But it turned out not to be as bad as I thought, and I didn't have any problems with the Mercenary. Even if he uses Leap Slam, the Mercenary immediately follows it up with Rallying Cry. Smooth gameplay. New Implicit. We're a unique enemy to the Mercenary, so this provides bonus damage. Not a bad damage boost. And a quick test. My favorite target dummy, the Uber Eater. Pretty good. And one more time. Wait a minute. Is that a loot? No way. And a juicy breach. This isn't exactly a super fast build, but you can still easily do breach on T16.5 maps with Delirium Orbs and Risk and Wisp Scarabs. Even though breach was nerfed in this league, it's still a good strategy for high tinks per hour. What's this all about? Gambling? I'm not interested in that. Well, maybe I'll check it out once, just for curiosity's sake. Another T0 unique item, but nothing too expensive. I wonder what Kadairo has in store for me during my SSF journey. The final purchase for my mercenary. A very huge axe. At first, I planned to craft it myself, but then I realized it would take a lot of clicks, and if I wasn't lucky, it would end up being a very expensive craft. And since I'm not the kind of player who likes to sit around in a hideout, I just bought it. I think it's a fair price. And back to my favorite activity. I want to admit that on this journey, I used the Mesa boss rush strategy a lot. All to find that old man. And also to find that devil's box. The only thing that distracted me from this was that I had to dive deep into the ocean to replenish my gold reserves. But I need to finish with this one, because the ritual is next on my list. I want to see how it performs in this league. Overall, not bad. It's an easy and profitable mechanic. People often ask me in the comments why when I show a money-making strategy, I don't mention how many divine orbs I earn per hour. But the answer to that question is very simple: I have no idea. Because those tedious calculations are exhausting. I just run the content, and if I like it and my divine orbs are going up, then I talk about it in my videos. If I don't like it or if I feel like the mechanic isn't profitable enough, I just don't do it. But in any case, the ritual is profitable. Back to the Abyss. Many of you were surprised why I returned to the Abyss, but it's definitely not because of the loot. I need experience, and the Abyss is the best place for that. Besides, I decided to give this mechanic a second chance. Unfortunately, no miracle happened this time, no juicy tinks, even though there were plenty of them in this video anyway. But I did reach level 100, exactly what I wanted. That was fun. But my journey has come to an end. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful. I'd also appreciate your likes and subscriptions. Bye for now, and see you in the next video.